Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, discussing who really controls the United States of America. George Orwell said, "If thought corrupts language, language can also corrupt thought." The people who control the communications and thus control the language have corrupted our entire system. The Podesta emails showed that Google spent $1.5 billion trying to win the 2016 election for Democrats. But they had a terrible candidate who got caught sending classified emails from her bathroom server. Anyone else would have been prosecuted for doing this, but being a Clinton and being a Democrat, she got a free pass. She claimed that none of her emails had classified information, but actually about 30,000 did. She failed to turn over almost 15,000 emails to the FBI, and she destroyed many more. She erased tens of thousands of emails which were under subpoena and said they were about yoga and her daughter's wedding. And she used Bleach Blitz software to erase any trace of her yoga emails. But the Clinton crime family are Democrats and they have a long history of getting away with felonies. The week before the Justice Department was set to make a decision about whether or not to prosecute Hillary, her husband Bill Clinton accidentally bumped into the Attorney General on the tarmac at the Phoenix airport. They then held a secret meeting inside the plane, and when they emerged from the plane, they said that they talked about their grandchildren. Anyone else would have been investigated for obstruction of justice. But the press corps and social media, who were completely in the tank for the Democrats, simply buried the story. Then a few weeks later, WikiLeaks released Hillary's emails, which were extremely damaging. It wouldn't have been difficult for a hacker to retrieve Hillary's emails from her bathroom server. Hillary screamed that her emails were Russian disinformation, even though she wrote them. Then she claimed that Donald Trump colluded with the Russians to release her emails. There was never any evidence of this, but it gave the press and social media an excuse not to discuss the very damaging content of her emails. CNN picked up on Hillary's Russia collusion story and talked about it nonstop for weeks or months. The hysteria which CNN whipped up led to the appointment of a special counsel whose job was to keep the focus on Donald Trump instead of the misbehavior of Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. The special counsel spent 2 years leaking fake news to CNN in order to damage Donald Trump's reputation. In doing so, he successfully corrupted the 2018 midterm election and got Nancy Pelosi in charge of the House of Representatives. This led to 2 more years of fake investigations and impeachments in order to distract attention away from the booming economy and the fact that Donald Trump had brought peace for the first time in decades. Despite 4 years of nonstop anti-Trump propaganda by the press and social media, he was way ahead when the polls were closed on election night. But votes kept trickling in for weeks in the middle of the night. By the time the votes were all counted, Joe Biden had won by less than 40,000 votes in the key swing states. And this was in an election where Republicans made across-the-board gains across the country. The election result was extremely suspicious, but the press and social media buried the story. And then a few weeks ago, Time magazine bragged about how a well-funded cabal of powerful people interfered with the election and got Biden in office. They called this massive rigging of the election fortifying it. The cabal did all kinds of dirty tricks like this article from Scientific American. Scientific American did everything they could to convince people that they were going to burn up from global warming unless they voted for Joe Biden. And then this week, Project Veritas released some very important videos showing misbehavior by CNN. CNN's technical director bragged that they overthrew the U.S. president using a massive barrage of propaganda. This is exactly the sort of election interference which CNN had accused the Russians of 4 years earlier. This is a massive, unprecedented scandal, but once again the press and social media buried it. Instead of screaming to the high heavens how the U.S. election had been corrupted, Twitter suspended James O'Keefe, the leader of Project Veritas. Twitter made up some fake accusations in order to silence James O'Keefe. He's been releasing all kinds of incredibly damaging information about CNN and the rest of the press. So they silenced him just like they did Donald Trump and many other leading conservatives. And in order to distract attention away from the incredible corruption of the 2020 election being exposed, the Biden administration threw up their usual smokescreen claiming that Russians interfered with the election. But the interference was by CNN, the New York Times, NPR, the rest of the press corps, and big tech. The state of democracy and elections in the United States is now a complete farce, and the situation is degrading even further. Having seized control of the White House, the House of Representatives, and the U.S. Senate, Democrats now also want to seize control of the Supreme Court. Senator Ed Markey wants to expand the Supreme Court to 13 seats to restore justice and democracy. But his real goal is to make sure that the 80% of U.S. counties which voted Republican have no representation in the federal government. The Supreme Court is the only remaining part of the federal government which has any chance to provide checks and balances to the out-of-control Biden administration. If Republicans had have tried to expand the Supreme Court 4 years ago, the press, social media, and Democrats would have screamed bloody murder. Democrats have no interest in fair elections or democracy. Their only goal is absolute power. And let's finish this up on a lighter note. After NASA's James Hansen predicted the Arctic would be ice-free between 2013 and 2018, the same Ed Markey who wants to expand the Supreme Court said that James Hansen is a climate prophet. James Hansen's science is atrocious, but there can be little doubt that he's brought lots of profit to Al Gore and many big tech billionaires. So apparently the Associated Press simply misspelled the word prophet. Democrats and their comrades in the press and social media completely control the language. Toto is doing his part to reverse as much of their dishonesty and corruption as he can. You can visit Toto and Kyrie on the web at realclimatescience.com.